What's going on, everyone? Today we've got my good friend Adam Von Rothfelder in the building. He's got a fascinating story. He was an electrician turned professional MMA fighter and celebrity trainer, back to being a doorman, then turned model, actor, entrepreneur. It's correct, right?
Jesus, yeah.
Most recently, he started on...
Sounds like you're introducing a couple of people.
You are like 4 people in one at times, or like 10.
Yeah.
Most recently, he starred on NBC's reality TV show Strong, just wrapped up a campaign with Gigi Hadid, father of 2, made a stint on TMZ for his nude photos. Welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on, man? It's good to be here. Thank you very much. That was a hell of an introduction.
Did I miss anything?
Versace model?
Versace campaign with Gigi Hadid.
Oh yeah, you said that. Good. All right. Yeah, you hit it all. I mean, that was an awesome introduction. I didn't even realize I did half of those things.
Amazing tattoos.
Amazing tattoos, sure.
All around good person, good friend.
I try to be. That's something I try to focus on.
You helped me lose 30 pounds once.
Yeah. How old were you?
That was like 4 years ago, 23.
23, yeah.
Because I gained 30 after starting my business, and then I met you. And you whipped me into shape.
Yeah, that was interesting. I remember you coming to me, and just like so many kind of like interesting people were finding me in this back room of the second story, and they heard stories about some tattooed guy that was making people throw up, and people showed up because they wanted to check it out, and all of a sudden, like 5 years later, it grew to a 6,000 square foot gym, and that was definitely interesting.
It was interesting. There's not a lot of people like you here in Milwaukee.
No. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of people like me on Earth.
No, there really aren't.
No.
Not that I've met.
Yeah. What is there a quote, like, too unique to live, too creative to die kind of thing? It's like I'm needed, but yet people can't be around me at the same time.
You're good in moderation.
Small doses. Small doses. That was a joke between me and Cece on Strong. Adam in small doses.
Yeah, Adam in small doses.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back about 10 years or so. What made you get into fighting?
Well, I was at the time I was a personal trainer at Bally's, and my brother passed away, and I heard this, ad on the radio the day that my brother died for this Milwaukee Rumble. And basically what it was is it was a call to anybody who thought that they were a tough guy that had no professional fights. And at the time, Wisconsin didn't have a professional MMA commission. So there were tons of what you would call amateur fighters, but guys that were experienced in fighting MMA. And I certainly wasn't one of them, but I was extremely athletic, and from constantly, like I was 22 years old. I graduated at 18 as a soccer player and a pole vaulter, but I got really into performance training, and I trained, for like the highest vertical, like become the fastest, and that was like my goal. I wanted to see how far I could push my body. And when I became emotionally pushed, when my brother died, I kind of released a lot of that into somebody's face, at this Milwaukee Rumble, and I did really well. Like the first guy I knocked out in 15 seconds. I mean, he had 3 inches on me and probably 15 pounds on me, and I came in there and just whopped him. And I mean, it kind of started there, but I didn't really like jump into it. It's kind of like wavered.
So it's
for years.
Accident, you're kind of like this immature 22-year-old guy. Your brother dies suddenly of a drug overdose, right?
Yeah.
And I'm guessing you were just emotionally distraught. You had
all
this rage built up, and you hear this Rumble ad on the radio, and
right. Yeah. I mean, it was like an awakening, and it was when I learned that if you're going to practice one thing every day, practice humility. And I started practicing humility, the first day I lost, the second fight, of that Milwaukee Rumble, and I went into it with this like, emotion of anger, because of, what happened with my brother, and it helped me feel what, like, the emotion that I really should feel, which is sadness, and I ended up using fighting then as a mechanism to help me like deal with my emotions in a better way, it's either that or I just, go beat the shit out of somebody in the street, and that wouldn't be a fair fight. It's just like, at least I'm going against other trained individuals. I may not have been a trained fighter, but I was certainly trained to do something, aggressively. So
you come out of nowhere, you do that, then how do you end up, then you go to LA, or were you fighting locally, or what's the timeline on that?
So basically I kind of, like I said, I kind of wavered around a little bit, and I got a job as an electrician. I went through a full apprenticeship, and while I was doing my apprenticeship, I was training. I went back the next year and I did the Milwaukee Rumble again, and I won. And everybody was, I knocked out 3 people in a row and took 1 people to the distance, and that was in 2 days.
Was the Milwaukee Rumble an MMA fight, or was it like
it was
a street fight?
It was kickboxing. It was all out 1-minute brawls for 1 minute for 3 rounds in a row.
Were you trained at all, or did you just show
No,
up?
I just showed up, and I just went in there and just was like, no, I'm better than that. Like, I'll just move, I'll just duck, I'll just throw a punch, I'll just throw a kick. And I mean, I had martial arts training when I was younger, and I was huge into like martial arts films, and I always found myself like mimicking the movements and just like feeling it. And I was really fond of dancing when I was like a kid. Like, I loved like breakdancing movies, like Breakdancing 2, Electric Boogaloo with like Turbo and Ozone, and like learning how to pop and lock. And so I had like an interesting body control for somebody who was really into like weightlifting at the same time. So it's like you put those two together, and it can be really dangerous if you learn how to do something that's specialized like fighting. And so after I won that Milwaukee Rumble, somebody came up to me and was like, yo, dude, you should do jiu-jitsu. I got this guy, he's awesome. He could totally teach you. They won't even charge you. It's cheap. I'm like, sounds like it's perfect for me. I'm only making like $12 an hour as a union electrician, like just in my apprenticeship. I don't have all this money to spend. So I started doing jiu-jitsu with Tom Mueller, who recently took like 2nd in the world at the Pan Am Games in a Brazilian jiu-jitsu competition. And day in and day out, I was rolling with like some of the best jiu-jitsu and MMA fighters, like locally, like John Friedland and Scott Houston and all these guys. And they all like patted my ego by basically saying like, dude, you're good for never doing this. You're good. Like, you should fight. And I'm like, okay. Or you should do a jiu-jitsu competition. I'm like, okay. So 3 months into training, I did the North American Grappling Association Midwest tournament, which is like 9 states, and I did the 3rd from the highest. It was like the intermediary, not the beginner, not the novice, and I ended up taking 2nd in the tournament. So I did really well. I lost to the guy who took 1st, and then they were like, dude, you should fight. Like, you're aggressive in your jiu-jitsu. Like, you would be a better even fighter than like at jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, okay. And 3 months later, I took an MMA fight at the same place that I won the Milwaukee Rumble, which was the Waukesha County Expo Center. And it was kind of interesting because I was really thrown into the fire. So I was supposed to fight a guy who was 1-1 in MMA, so he only had 2 fights. I had 0, other than these kickboxing. After the weigh-in, he didn't show up to the fight. And my coach said that he looked like he was going to shit himself when I stepped on the scale. And I didn't see the guy's face, so I couldn't speak of it. But he didn't show up the next day, needless to say. And the promoter of the fight calls me up and goes, hey, you want to fight Ed Blake? And I'm like, sure, what's his record? 7-1. I'm like, so he's won 7 fights, lost 1, so he's fought 8 fights. Yeah. I'm like, well, I didn't train for nothing. Yes. Like, I didn't cut all this weight for nothing. I had to lose 15 pounds for the fight, so I was like, yes. So I ended up fighting him, and I did really well. I didn't win, but I did really well. And That was kind of like the real beginning of my fighting career, you know. And then 2 years later, I moved to Minnesota, trained with, you know, the best in the world: Sean Shirk, Brock Lesnar, Matt Hughes, you know, Greg Nelson, who was, you know, the #2 super coach in the world. I was part of some huge fights. You know, I was ringside with like Fedor Emelianenko and Brett Rogers, and I was Brett Rogers' training partner when he fought Fedor at the Sears Center in Chicago. And then, you know, and then I separated my shoulder, and I started thinking like maybe fighting isn't for me. And just because I love training and moving and like doing more than it is that I love fighting. So I moved to California and kind of just rediscovered like fitness in a sense, you know, and kind of took a lot from my jiu-jitsu and my Muay Thai and all the things I learned of that kind of movement. I started intertwining it into like my like workouts, and I found no need anymore for, you know, getting punched in the face. And I realized that like my emotions after 5 years of punching and everything were like good. You know, I was no longer sad about my brother or angry. I was just
got it out of your system.
Yeah, I was dealing with it, you know. And I think a lot of people don't understand how to deal with death, and you know, you have to, because they stop celebrating life, you know. And I think that's, you know, one of the things that I continue to do was to celebrate my life by living, you know, and going after experience after experience.
Was there an element of guilt when that happened, or what emotionally, like, did you feel like you were missing part of yourself? Once your brother died and you were trying to fill that void? And,
yeah, there was definitely guilt.
And obviously none of it was your fault at all, but...
Right, no, there was a lot of guilt. I mean, just because he was dealing with a lot and I was dealing with nothing. I mean, I'm a 22-year-old. He was a 35-year-old dealing with a drug addiction and, you know, a marriage and 3 kids and, like, you know, in a business. And, you know, so I had guilt for being like a normal, you know, for being in a better situation in some sense, where it's like he dies, I live, you know. And so yeah, it was tough, you know. It definitely set a course of my life that changed me. You know, I realized how precious life is and how you have to allow your passions to succeed and like to thrive. You know, that's what you need. You need to live on that. And my brother was very passionate about carpentry, but he allowed something else to get in the way, which was drugs, you know. And I try not to let anything get in the way of my movement and my health and my vitality. And that's why when I realized fighting was doing that I, you know, no ego, just like done, I'm good.
And when you stopped, were you still in LA? I know you were a celebrity trainer there, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know, they throw that term around a lot in California. You know, I mean, I was training celebrities, but I didn't know who they were. You know, they were soap opera stars and this and that. But like, you know, I mean, I just love doing what I do, and those who value it, awesome. Well, a lot of people that tend to value it tend to be a little bit more affluent of what it is that I offer versus what somebody else offers. You know, like when I hear somebody say like, oh, Gold's Gym's a great gym. I mean, what makes it great? New equipment? I mean, right? You know, it's like, you mean it's a building full of great equipment. I wouldn't call it a great gym. I mean, like, what's their hiring process? Like, what's their certification process? How many continuing hours of education? Like, that's what makes it that's what would make it a great gym, if they had great trainers inside that constantly are searching out, you know, their knowledge. So in California, a lot of people really, you know, appreciate that, because California is constantly pushing the envelope for what's a better trainer. You know, so it was interesting being out there and staying out there for a while. And I continued to practice with my team for a while. I found surfing when I was out there, and I really got into surfing. I was surfing like 4 or 5 days a week for hours a day. That's actually kind of what stopped me from going to practice completely in the end. Like, I just found, like, instead of driving to practice, like, instead of pulling into the parking lot, I'd be like, you know, and I go to
Going to the beach.
Going to the beach, you know, which was super easy in California because it's right freaking there the whole time. So, yeah.
How old were you when you came back to Milwaukee, and why did you come back and leave that?
So, You know, it's interesting. When I left is right when people were like, dude, you are poised for something in the city. Like, you keep getting second calls, and I was getting a lot of hits for like stunt acting roles. I got this awesome commercial, and this was all in like, the first 2 months of being in LA. Well, the day I was shooting the commercial, I got a text message from one of my sisters that my dad had some irregular blood tests and some other stuff, and I was in like a interesting little like lovers quarrel out there with a girl that I didn't want to be with anymore, and I was staying in her friend's pool house, and they needed me to find a new place to live. It was just like, like 28-year-old bullshit problems that, everybody goes through to like some degree, like, oh, I got to figure out something new, and right when that happened, I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I'm going to come back. I'm like, I'm going to throw all my shit in my car. Something's wrong with my dad. On the day I'm shooting my commercial, 2 days later, I left. So it was like, I went home, I packed my stuff in my car, hung out with my tattoo artist. He tattooed my neck. We like kicked it till like 2 a.m. I drove to Vegas. Some of my buddies were partying in Vegas, and I was like, yeah, man. I'm like, I'll show up. So we partied in Vegas for like 2 days, and that was enough for me. And I drove all the way home and got home, and my parents were eating breakfast, and they were just like, oh my God, my mom starts crying, my dad was happy to see me, and I basically said to my dad, I'm like, I got to get a job. Can you drive me around? I'm kind of tired, So I went and looked for jobs that day, and that's when I became a doorman. So that's where I went back to being a doorman, from professional fighter, celebrity trainer to doorman.
What was that like emotionally? You get kind of your first break in a commercial.
Yeah.
You have a lot going on out there, and all of a sudden you're back in exotic Milwaukee, Wisconsin, bouncing at Dick's.
Distill,
excuse me.
I started at Distill. Get it right.
Yeah, you did bounce at Dick's though a little bit, right?
No, I was never a bouncer there. I was a
Excuse me.
I was a bartender. there.
Okay.
I was training Tom Wackman, who's the owner of Dick's.
Yeah, I remember that.
And we were trying to make Monday night popular. So I was working Monday Night Football and like trying to just get people in based off of like fitness and sports related, just trying to get people to gather around some general thing on a Monday night. But yeah, I started working at Distill. What was your question now? It was.
What was it like emotionally going from?
Yeah.
You're in a commercial. You have a lot of potential out there, and then
right.
You're in Milwaukee bouncing.
I haven't really thought about it much because like thinking about that stuff is kind of like what develops regrets. Right.
So well, you got a lot of cool stuff going on now.
Right.
So you can
exactly.
look back.
I think everything happened for a reason. I think that at the time I wasn't probably mature enough to handle what could have came to me at that time. I think I needed more life experiences. Not that I didn't think I had enough, but like at the same time, I knew something was coming. I would have regretted far more. I would have had a lot more emotion if I didn't go back. Me and my dad didn't have a good relationship, so I thought that if he wasn't doing well, that means that, he might not be around long. And if he's not going to be around long, I want to make sure that I have a good relationship with him before he's gone. So that's, that was my main, modus operandi. That was like why I did it. Uh-huh. So that was my persuasive cause. So, I really didn't think much. It was just kind of like, nope, got to go. Family, got to go. Yep. So, and when I got back, I was happy to be back. LA was interesting, but it was, like I said, I don't think I was ready for it. I think if I went there now with a wife and children, I would be far, far happier, like far better off.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can find a lot of trouble in California. So it's like, it's good to have somebody like, keep you in check and have like a greater responsibility than just yourself.
I can imagine with you too, and you're all tied into the sports and entertainment industry. There's just
Right.
shit going on everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny for a C-level person like myself. I mean, you still get invited to A-level parties, and all of a sudden you're showing up, and you're just like, holy shit, this is what people do. That have a lot more money than I. And so it wasn't really the scene I wanted to be in at the time.
So you're back. How shortly after did you start Drench?
I was working at Distill so I met my wife there. She was the hostess, and I was the doorman / like concierge. I kind of worked like floor management to some degree, and I couple like weeks into us working together, or months, she kind of told me that she liked me, and we went on a date, and I couldn't get rid of her afterwards, nor did I want to. But
that's a true love story.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, we met there, and it was great, and she went through some interesting experiences, like losing her dad, and I at first, when that first happened, I went to into a little interesting PTSD mode of like, oh my God, like I remember when I lost my brother, and I kind of like seized up a little bit. And that was the first time I was around like death again, like since that. So it was kind of like, whoa. And that almost put a damper on our relationship, but like we persevered through that, and it's been amazing since, and we have 2 kids now. And we actually got married on the day after my birthday, April 29th, and we went on a 2-day honeymoon in Vegas, and I opened Drench May 1st at 5:15 p.m. was the first official class. So like 6 months after working at Distill, I opened Drench. So I wasn't here long, and I had no idea that I was going to open a gym. Yeah. I had no freaking clue. I just knew that I didn't want to work for somebody else, and that I was way smarter than the people I was working for. So I'm like, wait, I could do this. Like I could do some version of owning a business. Like I don't know if I could run a business, but I know I could build a really cool brand and, be that person. I'm like, I could be that guy. And that was like the first time I realized that about myself.
And you did that. That was an amazing place. You really built a community around that gym.
Yeah. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, I was very involved, obviously. I mean, I was there teaching 25 plus hours a week, personal training clients. I mean, no matter where I would go, I'd bring my flyers with. I mean, the flyers had me all over it. I mean, I was on the cover of the Business Journal after only like 4 months in business, and they were calling me Mr. Marketer, and I mean, like, there was a lot of interest. I had the who's who of Milwaukee coming to me within less than 6 months of, he had the who's who, like Richie Burke of Go Get It. And if you want to get it, go get it. So
thanks for the plug.
Bam. So, I mean, but Tim Dixon, Bridgette Breitenbach, like Carl Kopp, like all these types of people that you're around, that you're like, oh yeah, those are the people that like make the city, like shine in a sense, and they saw something in Drench. And I mean, honestly, it was the people that made Drench ultimately successful, and cool. It was the people that first found it and then like brought all their friends in. So I was just there facilitating fitness.
And at that same time, more opportunities started coming. I remember you went out to New York Fashion Week. Then you started getting gigs. Yeah. That was interesting and totally unexpected too. So how did that all happen?
I had a cousin who I have a cousin. His name is Jeffrey Brezevoir. Hello, Jeffrey. And
I'm sure he's watching right now.
He will be. I'll tell him to watch this because I mentioned him. He's an incredible photographer, but once before that, he was an incredible model. So he was actually like on the cover of Vogue, and it was like one of the premier faces of like Ralph Lauren and like all this stuff. And he was like Prince Charming at Disney World. Well, he had this amazing career of modeling, and he realized that we were related, so we're second cousins. And he was like, is your aunt this? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, I'm your second cousin. He's like, have you ever thought about modeling? And I'm like, Yeah, so he introduces me to some agents and some photographers over email, and I went and saw this agent down in Chicago, and he's like, oh my God, he's like, you're Hollywood up here. He's like, this is awesome. He's like, but you're like WWF here. And I was like 220 pounds of muscle at the time. So he's like, lose 30 pounds and then come talk to me. Well, like, he didn't know that I could do what I knew how to do. So in 2 months, I show up 30 pounds lighter. And I'm like, and he's like, okay. So I went out to New York and I shot with like 5 very high-level photographers. And after one photo shoot, I like turned my Facebook on and I have over like 6,000 friend requests. And I found out this photographer with like 1 million followers, posts a photo of me with like wearing a name tag that says, hello, my name is Adam. And, and it's just like my picture with a shirt off. And, my Facebook blew up, and all of a sudden I'm getting calls for, photo shoots and from other photographers that want to shoot me around the world. And, I haven't gotten like a premiere, like a campaign or anything, or like actual paid photo shoot at this time yet. But I shot with, the people that, the best in the world, Tony Duran and, Rick Day and, Michael Stokes, like these people with millions of followers that are high-level photographers. And it wasn't until I kind of was like, I backed away like 2 years after that I got called for doing Versace. And I'm like, this is out of the blue. I really hadn't thought about modeling really. And all of a sudden 2 years later.
I remember you had that, and then you kind of laid low and focused on building the gym.
The gym again, yeah. Yeah, I went kind of back to the gym. I was like, okay.
Why did you do that? The gym needed you, or what was?
I had an asshole business partner that said stupid shit like spend more time on the business instead of yourself.
Did you have your first kid around that time too? Did that
No, that hadn't happened yet. Actually, what was actually going on is my dad got really sick. So the irregular blood work and the diabetes and everything ended up turning into leukemia. And that's not what it turned into. That's not how it works. But leukemia ended up surfacing, and he ended up being diagnosed with cancer. So he was in and out of the hospital a lot, and I felt like I needed to be more present. So since I was more present physically in the city, I figured I would just apply my presence back into the gym. And then the gym ultimately started doing really well again. And started growing, and we grew out of the second space and went into this other space. And at that time though, 3 years had passed, or 2.5 years had passed of opening Drench, and I didn't really, I wasn't really making much off of it. It was like the money was just constantly going back into the business. So I started kind of becoming discouraged, and I started looking at other avenues again. And that's when I, ended up having another kid. That's when I ended up having Azalea. Araceli and I, we had our first baby, and my dad died 3 months later. And that was a serious awakening. I looked at my dad, he's only 72 years old. Only 2 years prior, he's healthy as a horse, and helping me build, my first 2 gyms, working 14-hour days with me.
I remember meeting him back, we were setting up Drench, and I swung by and helped out. And your dad and your mom were there.
Right, and my dad showed up every day. He'd show up with 7 in the morning. It's like at 68 years old, 70 years old, showing up at, 6 in the morning with coffee in his hand, ready to work and excited to do something with me and spend time with me. And I would work with him for a couple hours, and I'd train a client, then come back and work, and he would just keep working. And for the first time in his life, he told me actually to not work so hard. And that's when I kind of realized I had to change some things, and that's why I shut down Drench, because I didn't want to work so hard. What idiot works 70 hours a week? What the fuck? How much life you're missing?
Yeah.
Who cares how rich you are if you're sick and depressed? You know, if you have lower back pain and you're under 50 years old, like shame on you actually. Like you're doing that to yourself. You know, like spending hour upon hour in front of that, you know, on that desk and just like not even thinking about like what else you're sacrificing and who else you're, you know, taking advantage of and whose time. And I started thinking about that, like how like absent I am from my own relationship with my wife, you know, because I'm working all the time, you know, and how absent I was from my dad, you know, dying, you know, because I was working all the time. So I wanted to change that, and that's what I did. And, you know, I opened up Como, which, you know, is a lot less stressful, you know, and it's, you know, and then I got, you know, this, it was interesting when I let go of the things that I thought were holding me down, how I started like just shooting up, right?
Yeah.
Versace, NBC, you know, Versace again. You know, I mean, I shot with my daughter. I shot with, you know, I shot 2 separate campaigns, NBC. You know, people say, I would say TMZ was a success too, the fact that I was on that. Like, check. Naked photos leaked, check.
So you lost your brother and your father way too early.
Yeah.
What's been your biggest takeaway from that?
Value life. Exceptionally, you know.
Now you have 2 young kids.
Especially your own, right? So this is what I learned from it, is that I still needed my dad, just like my brother's kids still needed him. We have a choice to take care of ourselves as a priority, or try to take care of everything else around us, which is what we tend to do. I think that if I learned anything, it would be the same thing that they try to teach you on the airplane. Put the mask on yourself, make sure you're okay, and everybody else will be okay around you by proxy. Like, mask on you, everybody gets masks, because I have a mask, right? But if you don't have a mask, everybody else is fucked. And, you know, I could still use a dad, I could still use a brother. You know, those are interesting things that I think about. And I don't want to not be able to take care of those around me for what I feel like they need me for, you know, and I think that's, everybody should realize that.
Yeah, I mean, that's so important. I think people spend so much time running around trying to do this, take care of others, and they say you can't give what you don't have, and if you don't take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of others?
Yeah, I mean, you're essentially, you're going to run out of giving. If you don't put anything in the well and you just keep putting out, you have nothing left. You know, true wealth is happiness and health put, you know, together. That's true wealth. It's like wellness and health, you know.
Yeah, and when you came back and you got to spend those last couple of years in Milwaukee with your dad, and he was proud of what you had accomplished, did that provide a sense of closure that you never really got with your brother, maybe when he suddenly passed? Or
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I look at like my brother and I was just old enough that we were going to become friends, right? He was 13 years.
There's a big age gap.
Yeah, he was
right?
13 years older than me. So finally, I was at an age where it's like, when you were 22, I'm sure you had a 30-year-old friend, you know, a 33-year-old friend, you know. So it's like, I could have been his friend for the first time, instead of like being his little brother that he feels like he has to, you know, reprimand or some, you know, whatever the heck big brothers do, you know, I don't know. So I think about it like definitely as that, like time was cut short. So earn the day, you know, take care of your time.
Then you do that, you start Como, you get your Versace break. No, you get the strong break first.
Actually, I don't know if the chicken came before the egg or what. I mean, it was, so actually I got the Versace, I got the strong call, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. and then like 2 weeks later, I got the Versace call. And I shot the Versace campaign 3 weeks before I left to go shoot the show. And I shot the show for almost 3 months in California. And when I came back, a week and a half later, I shot with Versace again with my daughter.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what's that like? So this all happened last fall.
Yes.
started happening. So you go from you're doing Como, you just started Como, and then all of a sudden you get a call and you're working with David Broom, Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
You go out there, you're working with Gigi Hadid.
Right.
What was that all like?
Surreal. I mean, ooh. Yeah, surreal. I mean, so, yeah, I mean, surreal. I mean, it was, you know, to my demise and to my success in some ways, I stay so in the present that I don't revel in the past. And the things that have already happened are no longer happening. So it's kind of interesting how I move about these things that I've done, where I'm really in it. You know, I don't like sit there and like in amazement in it. I'm in it. And then when people talk about it, I'm like, yeah, it was really cool. You know, like I don't know. I think still that I'm like in some kind of form of like shock, like surreal shock, you know, like you don't really realize that it's happening. Somebody one time told me like when you're on the train, you don't realize how fast it's going, you know, until you step off. And I haven't taken enough time to step off yet. So.
Do you ever get starstruck as this kid from Milwaukee and, you know, you're meeting Sylvester Stallone and these producers and models, and now you're sitting next to Richie Burke? Or you ever step out, you're like, holy shit.
I know. I'm like, holy shit. Well, I mean, I get more butterflies in my stomach when you're around than, you know, I mean, but that's only because we just. You know, okay, so I haven't been really starstruck yet. Sometimes I'm like, is what I'm saying cool? You know, like, are we all friends here and I'm able to like just be me, or do I have to be some like reserved version of me? But that flies out the window really fast because then I remember I'm me and I just am me, period. So I have no other button or mode. I will say though, I saw Natasha Henstridge, and you know when you're in a relationship, like, you know, like when you're younger and you're in these silly relationships when you're a kid and you're like, oh, if I ever met this celebrity, I would have like a pass or whatever, you know, like pass. Yeah, like a hall pass, right? A hall pass. You kids call it a hall pass. So Natasha Henstridge was my hall pass, but you say those things never expecting to meet your hall pass. Like, it's not actually.
It was your hall pass before you met her. You called that one in advance.
Right. I mean, I called that when I was like 20. You know, when I saw her naked in Species.
Then when you met her, did you walk up to her and you're like, hey, you're my hall pass? Do you want to go? Or how did this happen?
I had nothing to say. For the first time, I couldn't go up to her. I couldn't say anything to her. I mean, I was literally just like, is that Natasha Henstridge? And Gabrielle Reese was like, yeah, you want me to introduce her? I'm like, but kinda, yeah, but no. I'm like, that used to be my hall pass. And Gabrielle goes, she's like, I'll introduce you. And we turned around and she was gone. So it worked out well. It was.
She's probably watching right now. Anything you want to say?
I would imagine. Hi, Natasha.
Natasha, you still have an open invitation.
Right. I don't think my wife accepts this hall pass. Yeah. Mind. My wife's Mexican. Have you not met her? She's crazy. In a healing chakra, spiritual sort of way, honey. But still crazy.
What's the coolest moment you've had? You've done a lot of cool shit. One moment stuck out.
I would say the top two moments in my head is waking up at 6 a.m. and Laird Hamilton making me a cup of coffee, and us going out surfing. And I would say the other one is Donatella Versace asking to take a photo with me after we had lunch together. Those would probably be the top two, like most. That and kissing Gigi Hadid. That was pretty interesting.
That's big time.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody wants to kiss Gigi Hadid, and I mean, it's like obviously only Zayn and, a couple of models get to, and I mean, somehow I fell in that category. I mean, she punched me in the face 6 times too, but I got kissed 6
kissed
times
her
too.
and got punched in the face.
By her, yeah. I mean, it was funny. On the photo shoot, she kept connecting, like, and they wanted it to look real, and they didn't even use the damn footage. Like, I haven't seen it yet. Maybe they'll do like you should do just one of that. But
did you get any tongue action?
No. Just a kiss. Just a kiss. But dude, I mean,
Still counts.
She laid into me so many times with her knuckle that my face swelled up. They brought an acupuncturist to put some needles in my face to reduce the swelling in my face and her hand, because her hand was swollen. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, I'm being kissed and punched in the face right now by Gigi Hadid. I mean, to be honest with you though, before I got to the photo shoot, I had no idea who she was. I had no idea, because like, I don't follow that shit.
She's a big deal.
Yeah, she's a huge deal. So I mean, I knew that it would make all my friends jealous, which, hey, that's all that mattered.
Right. Exactly.
It's like being attacked by a bear. You don't have to outrun the bear, you just have to outrun your friends.
Which you can do.
Which I can do. So. My IT man.
All right, let's switch gears. So you're the smartest fitness person I know. As we were talking about earlier, you helped me lose 30 pounds. What do people get wrong?
You helped you lose 30 pounds.
I did. You assisted me. You trained me.
Yes.
You gave me dieting advice.
Yes.
What do people get wrong when they're training and dieting? What are some basic principles they should stick to?
I think the biggest things is that people undereat whole foods. So I think people actually are undereating, and I think they're overtraining. So in my opinion, most people are overtraining, undermoving, and undereating, right? So it's like, some people are overeating, but I would say a lot of people are undereating for like wholesome food, right? So they're eating a lot of snacky shit and not actually just eating whole foods. They're drinking, their calories, which don't satiate like certain parts of their, psychological needs for what food does, which is like you chew, so you create saliva, so you line the throat, so then the food digests. There's like all these things that happen, and then you become psychologically satisfied through the act of chewing and swallowing and all that stuff. And I think that people, and by what I mean by overtraining, I think that people spend far too much time being in a nutrient dense state and in an overly stressed state. So training begins when like your heart rate is like elevated. So like if you're in a stressful situation and work all day, like your heart rate is elevated, and then you go and hop on a treadmill for 30 minutes and run all your anxiety off, and then you go and lift weights and all this and that, and most likely you're just stressing a lot of your your body, hormonally, so super physiologically and physiologically. So I think that people need to be more conscious about their movement as well. So, good posture when you're talking, utilizing the elevator, utilizing the stairs versus the elevator, standing up from their desk and stretching. It's like your free time shouldn't be checking your own individual emails and your Facebook and shit. It's like, get up and move your body a little. Get up and don't grab a small glass of water instead of having a big bottle, and go and refill it, every time it's empty. So I think that a lot of people
All right, so you've always had a lot going on. What's kept you motivated?
Other than you?
Other than me.
Other than me. Motivation. Man, that's an interesting one. I think that you find motivation in a lot of things in life, and I think that they kind of accumulate. And I think that big motivators in my life right now are my children. I stay very motivated by wanting to give them like the best life possible. I find a lot of motivation in that. I find a lot of motivation in wanting to achieve my dreams. I focus on like creating intentions in the morning. I do some breathing practices that help me kind of clear my head from time to time. Yeah, I mean, I think that motivation is intrinsic, and I think that you have to find it for yourself. I think you can find external sources, but it's how you react to them.
Have you seen a common thread of motivation or certain traits that you've seen in all these elite people and celebrities that you've spent time with, compared to your average civilian?
I mean, I think what it is I think what motivates those that are motivated is learning and then therefore teaching, because I believe that education is one of the greatest ways to achieve a certain state of mind, right? That allows you to be very free in some sense. And I find that these highly gifted individuals, like on a physical level, are also very intelligent and in multiple fields. Like they don't just focus on one thing. They hear something interesting and they're all ears. And I think that being very open to all forms of education, all forms of, different information, I think that can become extremely motivating, wanting to just learn more. So I think that's kind of what I see in them.
Just having a high learning engine.
Yeah.
Always trying to get better.
Right, always trying to get better and it's not just about the body, it's about the mind, it's about like the spirit. And I think those that realize that, like Laird Hamilton, I mean, the way he reacted to what it was I was talking about with, movement and emotional, management response to how we control like our spine and how, this and that. I mean, he was hands on his knees, like I was telling him about play and we were in a Pee Wee football league huddle, he's like, and I mean, here's a guy who's, almost 60 years old and knows a lot and has done a lot, and yet...
And he doesn't need to accomplish anything.
No, he doesn't need to accomplish anything, but yet he still stays motivated every day, and I find that it's through education. I mean, he's not jamming to, the newest Fetty Wap song in his Hummer. He's listening to, some incredible book, that is talking about, the creation of Homo sapiens versus, the Neanderthals, and it's like that is motivating him because he knows where he's coming from and he knows how far the mankind has achieved, so therefore he wants to see what he can achieve on his own. So he's finding like new motivation at different parts of his life.
And that's interesting you say that, because one of the number one correlations to happiness is growth. And a lot of these high achievers, they pretty much have achieved everything they could imagine in their chosen field. And it seems like the ones who are still happy, they find a new thing to go after or to grow in and learn in, where the other ones, if they can't find that, that's when you see a lot of these celebrities, having drug overdoses or ending up in rehab or having all sorts of problems because there's no way to grow and they kind of spiral out of control.
Totally. Yeah, I think that if success comes too fast, it can be dangerous. I think that like growth is essential because you're not only growing from your experiences, but you're also growing from others, and people's experiences can affect you in certain ways, and you have to be open to them. I think that I think that we all have the ability to be better, and greatness is a sliding scale, and I think that to be great is to constantly want more for yourself and for those around you. And I think it's like when you stop wanting more for yourself and those around you, that that's like the killer of motivation. Like, I think motivation exists. I think you choose to like not listen to it. Mm-hmm. So you just have to like, yeah, I got you.
What have you been most proud of on your journey through all these things? Me
kids. Yeah, I love when people tell me that I'm an awesome dad. I was at my mom's house, and me and the girls were playing in the backyard, and the neighbor the next day was like, you're a really good dad. She's like, I hear you all the time in the backyard, like running around with the kids, from 5 p.m. when you get home to 8 p.m. at night, and like you don't say no to them wanting to play, and you know, and it's just I think it's really important to me. You know, I just want to make sure that like I'm my best version of myself, and for those that need me to be that for them, and to not waste it on others that aren't valuing it, and who values it more than a kid, you know, to play. So I'm very proud of my ability to like let my own selfish needs go of being lazy or wanting to like call this person or look at this thing on this website or watch this show that I haven't been able to watch in 3 weeks, or, you know, whatever it is, and just put that shit aside and realize that you're doing something, you know, for a greater good, you know, for somebody else's development, including your own.
Right.
Because you learn a lot when you're with kids, or, you know, it translates to other people. Like, do what somebody else wants to do. Stop thinking that everybody wants to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
You know, like, go do what somebody else wants to do. I think that's important.
Final question.
Last one.
What is your definition of a go-getter?
Man. You know, I remember I ended in some like savvy, cool way like 5 years ago when we did one of these. I was the first go-getter.
You were the only one to make it.
I think the definition of a go-getter is, if you look it up, you'll see a picture of me.
That is not narcissistic at all.
Not at all. No, actually, I was thinking of something funny and it just wouldn't come to me. You know, I think it's not there today.
The one thing you were speechless on.
Right. I think that the definition of a go-getter is, I think it's a hell of a Midwest thing, and I think that a go-getter is, you know, somebody who sees something that they either can achieve or create, and they do what's necessary to obtain that, you know, to achieve that. I think that if you're gonna go get something, you have to be understanding that something else is gonna come in your way, and if you keep your eyes on that original thing that you wanted, you will go get it.
Awesome. And where can people find you?
You know, Como Nation.
Other than TMZ.
Yeah. You know, you can find me with XPT, with Gabrielle Reese, Laird Hamilton, and Brian McKenzie. We're teaching workshops all over the country, Montauk, Malibu, Carmel. Come and take a 3-day experience with us. It's amazing. Otherwise, you can check me out on vonrothfelder.com and to see what I'm up to. Or if you want to work out with me and move with me and grow, you know, on a physiological and a conscious level, check out comonation.com.
Awesome. And social media.
Yeah, social
Very
media.
active.
Yeah, I'm very active on there.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Bye, Mom.